Since I first started exploring the human mind, I have noticed that family ties, no matter how strong they seem, sometimes hide difficult truths that few people want to admit. From my experience, I have identified certain behaviors that show a lack of appreciation at home. Today, I want to talk about a serious topic: clear signs that your family does not value you. This topic can deeply affect you, so it's important to pay close attention and read through to the end to fully understand each point. I will explain everything in a simple way, but with enough seriousness to make you think about behaviors that are often hidden at first. Please stay until the very end, because what you learn here might change how you see your family and help you think differently about your relationships with them. Sign 1 is the subtle way contempt shows up in how people communicate. This kind of contempt hides behind small gestures, like ignoring you or always correcting what you say. It might seem harmless, but these actions quietly hurt you and disturb your peace of mind, even if no one says anything openly. Scornful looks or cold smiles create a tense atmosphere full of negative energy. You might hear comments that put down your achievements, make your efforts seem unimportant, or blow up every little mistake. This behavior tries to keep you feeling insecure by making you doubt your own value all the time. Sometimes there are no direct insults, but an ironic tone is used to make your opinions seem silly. When this happens over and over again, it builds a web of disrespect that slowly destroys your self-confidence.
This subtle undercurrent appears in family conversations or private talks. For example, when your presence is ignored or when praise is deliberately withheld. Maybe things seem normal in front of others, but in private, passive-aggressive control takes over, which is exhausting. There's no need for open violence to destroy emotional stability. Small rejections, drop by drop, wear down your self-esteem. Stay strong and keep reading, because exposing this silent manipulation will help you see it more clearly and protect your boundaries. It's a sick game that's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. That's why staying alert is so important. Staying until the end will help you understand how these details connect with larger patterns, as each sign is reinforced by other attitudes that undermine your inner harmony. Subtle contempt, even if rarely spoken about, has traumatic effects if it lasts. It sows insecurity and creates the perfect breeding ground for deep emotional wounds. Sign 2. Disproportionate demands and lack of recognition. When the family constantly demands, there is no room left for understanding or support. You are expected to take on duties that go beyond what is reasonable, without the slightest expression of gratitude. This behavior hides in tasks imposed on you regardless of your current situation. You hear comments that blame you for not doing more or for not meeting excessive expectations. In a healthy environment, there is reciprocity, but here, imbalance dominates. The family takes a lot, but gives little in return. Often this hides an attempt at manipulation. Every favor you give is met with sparse acknowledgement or a forced smile. The cycle repeats because genuine appreciation is missing. Your desire to please grows in the hope that your sacrifice will one day be acknowledged. This vicious circle drains your willpower and leads to physical and mental exhaustion. The family's glances become critical. They demand results in a hostile manner and become offended or make you feel guilty if you don't meet their expectations.
Affection and true love are replaced by hidden commands, and every act of generosity is taken for granted. This disregard can destroy your inner motivation and leave a sense of injustice and uselessness. A constant feeling of obligation arises, from which you can hardly free yourself for fear of their reaction. This scenario is not only exhausting, but makes you believe you can never do enough to be truly appreciated. Stay alert, because more signs will follow later that, along with this excessive demand, deepen the internal wound even further. Recognizing them will help you act more clearly. Realizing that a family drains you with insatiable demands is crucial to distinguishing between a healthy bond and a destructive cycle. But it doesn't end here. The real burden arises when these demands are accompanied by even harsher actions that make you appear not as a loved and respected family member, but as a mere tool. Sign 3. Your abilities and needs are underestimated. Another clear form of devaluation is the constant questioning of your abilities and needs. You are confronted with attitudes that doubt your every decision or endeavor, as if you lacked strength, ambition, or judgment. This disregard also extends to your emotional, material, or health needs. They are dismissed as exaggeration or whim. When your family ignores the circumstances that burden you, an isolated climate arises, without room for compassion or cooperation. Your exhaustion, stress, or pain is often downplayed compared to what others supposedly endure. This unfair comparison not only devalues your voice, but also distorts your perception of reality. Your problems always seem insignificant. Pay close attention to these dynamics, as they can disguise themselves as jokes or harmless banter to deprive your inner experience of its meaning.
A family that does not value you often neutralizes your inner warning signals so that you begin to mistrust your own judgment. The result is a feeling of helplessness. You withdraw more and more, unsure whether you're even being heard. This pattern harbors a subtle danger, because constant devaluation forms an inner voice that makes you question your own abilities. Keep reading and stay with it. More signs will follow that complete the overall picture of a family that does not support your personal growth. Everything interlocks, like a mechanism that, if not stopped, ruins your emotional health and sabotages your potential for development, as well as your ability to form healthy relationships and trust yourself. True respect means acknowledging the needs and boundaries of every family member. When that doesn't happen, a bitter aftertaste of loneliness arises, and the certainty that your wishes will never be a priority. This wound can severely damage your ability to trust, and that's what makes this pattern so dangerous. It destroys your self-image and makes you confuse familial love with manipulation or indifference. Sign 4. Hidden hostile behavior. Sometimes the family shows hostility in covert ways. There are no open insults or physical attacks, but a noticeable coldness hangs in the air, setting your heart on alert. You get the feeling that you're more of a nuisance than a contributor. Such family members express themselves through biting hints, sarcastic comments, or mockery disguised as humor. They deliberately block your attempts to get close with icy silence filled with resentment or indifference. A climate of constant tension arises where every word could trigger an explosion. Silent reproach lingers in the air. This passive aggression manifests in being left out of gatherings, in forced distance, or through a complete lack of affection. Your body feels this tension as if your home were a minefield and not a safe place. It is essential to stay attentive and read this text to the end, because understanding this phenomenon is crucial to seeing through the web of familial devaluation.
Those who experience this form of hostility often do not immediately recognize it as abuse, as it mixes with seemingly neutral behavior. Superficially friendly days are followed by phases of cold withdrawal. This constant back and forth exhausts the mind, creates confusion, and leads to a destructive emotional dependency. the urge to restore the old normal at any cost. This creates inner guilt. One begins to believe that the family's behavior is related to one's own weaknesses. In reality, it is a sophisticated form of manipulation. The aggressor controls through insecurity and strategic distance. Recognizing this sign is crucial, as it shows how deep the damage can go when a family does not value you. The solution begins with clear boundaries and the awareness that you have a right to inner peace. But to take this step, you must grasp the full extent of the hidden hostility that poisons daily coexistence. Sign 5. Indifference to your feelings or achievements. A family that does not value you will eventually show that your feelings and achievements mean nothing to them. When you share good news, they respond tepidly or abruptly change the subject as if to minimize your moment. No genuine interest, no sincere feedback, and in the worst case, they even sabotage your progress.
This indifference goes far beyond mere disinterest. It feels like a wall that blocks every attempt to share joy. Over time, this attitude becomes chronic and creates emotional isolation that leaves you feeling empty inside. The family avoids engaging with your emotions, stays superficial, and prefers to focus on their own matters. Interpersonal connection requires reciprocity, but in this type of relationship, that bond is broken, which feels like betrayal. The family atmosphere becomes cold and gray. No pride in your victories, no sincere comfort in your defeats. This emotional distance undermines your self-confidence and makes you feel like your efforts are worthless. Don't give up. There is more to understand about the layers of familial indifference. This indifference is also shown when you ask for support or show vulnerability and receive only mockery or ignorance. It doesn't need open aggression. It's enough to dismiss or completely ignore your experiences. Often there are also remarks that downplay your concerns. This creates an inner vacuum that swallows every hope for understanding in your own home. This scenario breaks family cohesion and weakens your inner security until you become dependent in other areas of life. It is necessary to recognize this condition because familial indifference often becomes normalized and leads the affected to believe their feelings don't matter. Recognizing this is a crucial step in drawing a line so that the coldness of those who should love you doesn't trap you forever in dissatisfaction. Sign 6. Guilt as a tool of control. One of the most destructive ways a family shows lack of appreciation is by using guilt as a tool of control. This tactic appears as moral obligation, emotional guilt, or the idea that your worth depends on total self-sacrifice. You're constantly confronted with accusations emphasizing the time, effort, and dedication supposedly invested in you, which you are now expected to repay without objection. This constant reminder of everything we've done for you reinforces a power dynamic that forces obedience and silence. In this state of submission, your wishes are suppressed through emotional blackmail that restricts your freedom. It gets even darker when you begin to accept these feelings of guilt and internalize the belief that you don't deserve space or personal decisions. A crushing weight appears that paralyzes you and prevents you from growing with autonomy. Every step in a direction your family disapproves of becomes a trigger for tension and accusations. As you continue reading, you will see how this imposed guilt interlocks with other behaviors, reinforcing the feeling of being unappreciated. Sometimes this emotional blackmail appears as fake concern or victimhood. They lament their suffering while ignoring your emotions and expect you to honor their continuous effort.
This strategy makes you suppress your own voice out of fear of being seen as ungrateful or irresponsible. You might even be denied the right to set clear boundaries, because as soon as you try, a wave of guilt is unleashed. These long-term dynamics often lead to self-esteem issues, anxiety, and chronic fear of disappointing others. The core truth is that a family that manipulates you with guilt does not acknowledge your individuality or your right to a life of your own. Control through shame or guilt is a clear sign that your identity is not respected. You are seen only as a means to fulfill their expectations. Sign 7. Lack of support in critical moments. Another clear sign of familial devaluation is the absence of support in key moments. When you go through a health crisis, work conflict, or financial trouble, you expect backing from your family, but instead you are met with excuses, disinterest, or even comments blaming you for your own problems. This indifference often hurts more than a direct attack, because it destroys the hope for a safety net when things fall apart. Support does not always mean solutions. Often, just the willingness to listen and be there is enough. In a family that doesn't value you, even this is missing. You may get vague advice or hollow promises that are never kept. This pattern repeats itself, revealing that your difficulties matter less than their comfort. Such a family does not want to give up their ease to support you. Along with apathy, sharp criticism and blame also often appear, emphasizing your supposed faults rather than offering empathy. This creates a sense of complete isolation. Pay close attention to these details. They reveal who is really there only during success, but disappears when storms come. The pain deepens when you realize there is no real bond, only a quiet agreement that your needs are secondary and no one takes responsibility for your well-being. This not only destroys the family connection, but also affects your relationships with the outside world. You develop deep mistrust of closeness and affection, and an inner void that makes you question your own worth. The betrayal is found in every silence, in every turned back where you needed support. It leads to the belief that you can only rely on yourself, which causes isolation and withdrawal.
Recognizing this is essential to prevent accepting the lack of help in hard times as normal, because those who love you show up in moments of real need, and those who don't clearly prove they have no genuine feeling for you. Sign 8. Constant and destructive comparisons. If your family doesn't value you, they often resort to constant comparisons, highlighting what you allegedly lack or haven't achieved. They talk about the successes of other relatives or acquaintances to devalue your achievements or emphasize your supposed shortcomings. Such comparisons serve no constructive purpose. They aim to highlight weaknesses and create a sense of inadequacy. Your individuality is reduced to an unfair standard that only fuels frustration and self-doubt. Over time, this behavior becomes a psychological weapon that deeply wounds your self-esteem. A constant sense of inferiority grows, and trust in your abilities diminishes. This toxic habit can appear in subtle remarks like, "Why can't you be more like your cousin?" or "Look at how your sibling succeeded while you struggle." This triggers internalized shame and guilt. Instead of motivating, these comparisons paralyze your initiative. Your family uses them as a tool to keep you in a subordinate position. These comparisons often obscure your real qualities and potential because they never acknowledge your unique path or struggles. This pattern is deeply unfair and serves to keep you feeling less worthy. Recognizing this pattern is key to breaking free from destructive cycles. It is important to remember that your value is not defined by others' achievements. Healthy families celebrate individual successes rather than diminish them. Sign 9. Emotional neglect or dismissal. This sign shows when your family ignores your emotional needs, refuses to talk about feelings, or dismisses your emotional expression as weakness or drama. When you seek comfort, you receive silence or avoidance. This emotional neglect can be subtle or overt. Your feelings may be trivialized with phrases like, "Stop being so sensitive," or "You're overreacting." This leads to emotional isolation, where you feel unseen and unheard. Over time, this neglect breaks down your emotional resilience and leaves you vulnerable.
A family that dismisses your emotions denies you the fundamental human need for connection and validation. This neglect creates a barrier that prevents genuine intimacy. You might learn to hide your feelings or suppress them to avoid conflict, which impacts your mental health. This pattern may also lead to difficulties in trusting others and forming secure attachments outside the family. The absence of emotional support becomes a deep wound that shapes your emotional life negatively. Recognizing emotional neglect is essential to seek help and establish healthier boundaries. Remember, your feelings deserve respect and care.
One of the clearest signs that your family doesn't truly value you is when they constantly make fun of your dreams and goals. Whenever you share your plans for the future, they don't take you seriously. Instead, they laugh, call your ideas unrealistic, and use sarcasm to tear down your efforts. Over time, this kind of behavior kills your natural desire to grow, the kind of desire that should be supported, not mocked. Eventually, you start to question yourself. You begin to wonder if your dreams are stupid or if you're just not good enough. When the people you expect to encourage you are the ones breaking your confidence, something inside you starts to crack. That crack grows deeper as you realize your family isn't standing beside you. They're exposing your hopes like there's something to be ashamed of. And suddenly, dreaming big doesn't feel brave anymore. It feels like a mistake.
When you really look at this pattern, it becomes clear just how damaging a toxic family dynamic can be. Making fun of your dreams isn't just harmless teasing. It's a message. We don't want you to grow. Why? Because your success might make them uncomfortable. It could challenge the small, familiar world they've settled into. So instead of supporting you, they try to keep you down. Not always out of hate, but out of fear. By belittling your goals, they try to keep you tied to the same limitations they've accepted for themselves. This kind of emotional poison slowly feeds your self-doubt and chips away at your determination. Even when they say they mean well, their sarcasm and mockery plant seeds of fear, making you question whether it's even safe to dream. Eventually, you start hiding your goals, not because they don't matter, but because you're tired of being laughed at. You silence your own voice just to avoid their judgment. And in doing so, you lose touch with the part of you that was ready to fight, grow, and become more. That's why it's so important to recognize what's really happening. Their mockery isn't about you being wrong. It's about them being afraid. Once you see that clearly, you can start to protect your dreams instead of shrinking them. And that's the first step toward building a future on your own terms. When your family mocks your dreams, it's a clear sign they don't truly respect you. And without respect, there can be no real love, only control, criticism, or conditional care. Recognition of who you are and who you want to become gets lost in their need to keep you small. Still, those who keep moving forward despite the mockery often develop a deep, unshakable strength. But that strength begins with honesty, the courage to admit that your family's behavior is hurtful, not helpful. Only by facing this truth can you begin to protect your dreams and walk your own path. Because when your family doesn't value you, it doesn't just hurt emotionally, it affects every part of your life. It affects your confidence, your choices, and your ability to believe in yourself. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward healing and toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. Closing this chapter begins with one powerful truth. You don't have to accept indifference or contempt, not even from family. You have the right to be respected, supported, and seen for who you truly are. Now is the time to strengthen your self-worth and sharpen your judgment. Set clear boundaries. Surround yourself with spaces and people who recognize your value and uplift your spirit. Awareness is your protection. It keeps you balanced, focused, and open to healthier possibilities. Don't underestimate how far clarity can take you. If this message resonates with you, subscribe and keep learning how to navigate these emotional patterns with strength and wisdom. Don't miss the chance to build a life around people who truly empower you. Now is the time to move forward, with purpose, with courage, and without looking back. Because knowledge gives you wings, and with it, you can finally rise above the shadow of being undervalued.